in Namibia, sharing your experience in Uganda and how it's going to benefit Namibia. So we'll move along and invite Guy Kasakumba from Gabon. Guy is the Deputy Director General of the Local Content Department in the Ministry of Oil and Gas in Gabon. Please clap for Guy. Thank you.
You have to press the button. Okay. So good morning. I'm from Gabon. I will start first of all by introducing myself. I work 27 years in Shell. So I had the opportunity to work in Nigeria, to work in Brunei, to work also in the Netherlands. So when we were talking about training is critical, I think I'm one of the example of what training can give you. After 27 years in Shell, I worked for 2 years in the National Oil Company, which is called GOC. And then now I'm working for the government. So I was in the IOC, then I worked for the national company, and now I'm in the government. So what I will be sharing with you here, it's a mix of my personal experience and also the real challenge which we are now facing with the local content implementation. But I will clearly tell you that I'm not trying to tell you how you need to run local content in Namibia. I think it's so dependent of the country, its social structure. It's even more important, I would say, the social structure than really the legal framework, because it all starts by the real willing of the country to make the most of the resources which is in their own country. Yeah, the rest will simply follow. As soon as you have a good, the intentions are very good, mostly it will not be difficult to find the organization, the policy, which will actually be put in place. So Gabon has been producing oil since 1954, so that's quite a long time. And we start to talk about local content implementation around 2014. And again, it's important to stress here that we also kick off local content because the managing director of Shell Gabon was a Nigerian. I think some of the Nigerian friends who are here maybe know him. His guy is called Godson Joku, who was really the first Nigerian MD to come to Gabon and to push for the local content. We were not ourselves in Gabon pushing for local content. So well, I think most of the people were happy with the way things was running, so there was no real, I would say, pull for the country itself to do local content. So it was a Nigerian MD. And I think it also had a very good impact, I would say, for the Gabonese. I'm talking about the Gabonese staff, yeah, because most of our MD was most of the time British. If they were not British, they were Dutch. So for most of the mind of people, maybe there was a kind of association that to be an MD of the oil company, you need to be a Dutch or a French or a British. So it's also important, that's why I was talking about these social dimensions, because you can put all the law, but if you don't have the will of the people to come to drive those changes, they will not happen. So in terms of the dimension, as I say, today, Gabon is producing around 220,000 barrels per day, so which, let's say about, if we compare to Nigeria, time less. So we have about 10 plus operators. I'm talking about here. Most of the IOC left in 2017, Shell left. Total is still there. But now we have what we call the independent oil producer, but these are still foreign companies. I'm thinking here about companies like Perenco, Morel et Prom, who are now also going and moving into other countries. There is about 750 subcontractors, and we have around 250 companies. I'm talking about indigenous companies, but they are mainly running what I will call low technical contracts. So there is a lot of work to be done in terms of how to move, let's say, the technical experience of our company. Again, I already talked about it. Just maybe to pinpoint something important here. As you say, of course, there is local content on the hydrocarbon law of 2019, but it is only in 2024-26 where there was a directorate which was created to run local content. Before, basically, IOC was doing it with the regulators, but there was not enough time to monitor progress. Yeah. Okay, really, in terms of key actions, so of course we are still working on the laws to improve them because there is always gaps to be completed. We are also doing what we call operational review, operator review, where we are looking at the local content implementation and trying to find, again, company by company, what are the gaps which need to be closed. And we also have field follow-up just to check how things are really running on the ground. I think for me, the most important point here, which I learned already after spending almost about 1.5 years as the Deputy Local Content Directors, is that we cannot do without data. What I mean by this is that, as soon as you make a decision, if you are not able to follow it through, and you are actually looking at things after 1 year, I think your environment is changing, your let's say company base are changing, so you will not have time. So you really need to have a tool to be able to look at your portfolio of contractors, follow up on contracts which are actually being put in place, etc., etc. For us, the digital local content platform is critical. We don't have it yet, so this is really one of my focus in terms of my job now. By also looking at these topics, the more and more I want to get out of this local content, because local content, I think, is missing sometimes the point that we are now just basically building capacity and capability. This is really what we are trying to do, but I'm talking about indigenous capacity and capability. And this has to be done by ourselves. Yeah, because if you start already to rely on the IOC to develop your stuff, something you already have it wrong, because you will actually be moving with the pace of the IOC. So it really has to come from the people themselves, that they really need to push themselves to be able to grab those opportunities. And you see it even in a country where oil has been discovered for a long time. You will find out that the topic of oil and gas is discussed in a small circle. They are discussing it. We are actually between ourselves here, people of the oil industry. But this is not a topic of the oil industry. This is a topic of the country. So basically, everybody should be involved. It shouldn't be just simply the discussion about, IOC or Minister of Petroleum. It should be the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Environment. All the people should have a vast interest on what's going on the oil industry. You cannot say that the industry which is providing you 50% of its revenue, only a minister is actually looking at what's going on there. Yeah, so, there is no challenge because at a certain point, what will happen is that this is basically people working together, so they get used to the same thing. They have the same thinking patterns, and you cannot get something else because you really need to put some fresh thinking around these topics. I just want to again insist on this. Even in Gabon, I've got people telling me, oh, Guy, the petroleum industry is not for us. It's too complicated. This is really for you. Oh, you are lucky to be there. Just enjoy. No, but it's not for us. This is not normal. This is not the oil of the people running the oil industry. This is the oil of the country. So everybody should have a vast interest. Teachers, researchers, everybody should be looking at it and checking whether this is performing as expected. And I think we need to really get out of this mindset about, look, oil industry, or the oil industry should only be run by the people, coming from the oil industry. So that's what I'm talking about, the transformational challenges, because for me, it is about transforming people. It is about how do we create ourselves those capacities, those capabilities to be able to seize the opportunity. Let me also share with you one of the examples which really completely blew my mind. I was told that, oil company need insurance when they are running their business. And I was just trying to find out whether we can do local content in the insurance sectors. So my question was, so why should a company, an international company, running an oil business in Gabon, should be taking his insurance in London? Why is it not possible that the insurance should actually be in Gabon or in Namibia? And I was replied that, oh, the reason was that, the limit of the insurance company in Gabon is too low, so they cannot do this insurance. So again, this is because these discussions have actually been restricted to the same people, and then there is no way for the people to think bigger than what they are actually experiencing every time. So again, this is maybe for you who are starting, this is also something we can look in terms of local content. So let me move to the next one, and then I will close out. Yeah, so I think I will even skip because I've been already sharing them. I can now share my takeaway. Really, for me, I see three things which are really important. The first thing is the strong political backing. But when I'm speaking here about political, I'm not talking about political, the government. I'm talking about the people, because the government is the expression of the people. So basically, here what I'm saying is that everybody need to be involved in this oil business. It's not just simply the government, yeah? And the second point which I want, the shared governance, which I'm talking here, is that you cannot do it alone. Even if the government, even if the people want to really do something about it, really the IOC, all the investors who are coming and who really want to seize the opportunity need to be part of the game. They need to get involved. They need to see that this is important for the country to develop local content. Yeah, and you can also always create it the way you want. And the last thing, specialty now today, is the digitalization. If you don't start with digitalization now, there is no way you're going to do something with local content. That's my final words. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Guy. Strong political backing is needed to deliver local content. That resonates with me. Our last panelist is Graham Hopwood, Executive Director, Institute for Public Policy and Research. He's just going to share with us some thoughts on local content for Namibia. Thank you. Thereafter, we will take questions from the audience.
Thank you. As introduced, I'm Graham Hopwood from the Institute for Public Policy Research, IPPR, which is a Windhoek-based local think tank focusing these days a lot on energy-related research. So I think the first thing to say is that Namibia's oil and gas aspirations will definitely need to have local content. If these developments are to be more than simply extractive and actually bring benefits beyond those that can be predicted for the fiscus. So we know already that the tax and royalty regime that will be applied could significantly increase government revenues, but that won't be enough in terms of the Namibian people. They'll need to see real improvements in their lives and opportunities. I think the first thing to say about Namibia, or maybe the second thing after that, is or to point out, is that Namibia is a functioning democracy. It's not a perfect democracy, but most of the elements of democracies are working in Namibia. So we do have an independent judiciary. Our media is usually rated second or first most free media environment in Africa. We have an active civil society, of which IPPR is a part. So in this context, the issues of accountability and transparency will be key in Namibia, because we need to ensure that the benefits flow through to the populace, and for credibility reasons, Namibians need to see citizens participating in meaningful ways as suppliers of goods, services for the oil industry, and real participants in the upstream petroleum sector. Since 2021, we've been talking a lot about local content in Namibia, and we finally, in early August, heard from the government, the cabinet has approved the final local content policy. I don't think it's been published yet. I haven't seen it. We have earlier iterations, which I think are likely to be very similar to the final agreed version. But the key issue now is to be able to measure how that policy will be applied and implemented. So we do need to know who gets the contracts, who ultimately owns the companies involved, how much actual value stays in Namibia, how many Namibians move into skilled and managerial positions. And a crucial question for us in civil society is to make sure that that information is publicly available. We have an Access to Information Act in Namibia. It was passed in 2022, but it's still not been implemented. We hope very much that it will be implemented this year, because it's important that the developments in the upstream petroleum sector go forward in the spirit and the letter of the Access to Information Law, which talks about proactive disclosure. So that means that a lot of the documents that contracts and so on will need to be, the lists of companies involved and the data will need to be proactively published by the stakeholders, but here principally government. So local participation without transparency can actually increase corruption risk. And that's just not a theoretical statement. We have a practical experience in Namibia, not in the extractive sector per se, but in the fishing industry. So we already have that experience of what happens when a valuable natural resource, discretionary allocation by government and politically connected local beneficiaries are intersecting together in a corrupt scheme, and that scheme was called fish rot. It was exposed by the media in 2019, and at present, 2 former cabinet ministers and a number of other significant personalities, business people and so on in Namibia are currently in jail awaiting trial in relation to that. And the worrying thing about fish rot is that we're still dealing with the aftermath. We're still now, this year, talking about reform of the fisheries sector. That's 7 years after the exposure of the corruption. So with oil and gas, it's really important that we build the safeguards before petroleum revenues and procurement become enormous in Namibia, so that we're not left being reactive and responding to scandals after they occur. So I think local content, as I said, must mean broad participation and not politically connected participation. So we do have this challenge of making sure that local does not become synonymous with politically connected persons or companies that simply are created to capture contracts. In this sense, beneficial ownership disclosure will be absolutely crucial going forwards. We haven't got perfected that in Namibia at the moment. We still need to have conversations with our Business Intellectual Property Authority about how we can make sure that beneficial ownership information is fully disclosed in this sector. Transparency should be baked into the system from the beginning. So government and the operators should publish local content commitments and subsequently report about them. Namibian employment, training expenditure, procurement for Namibian companies, ownership details, contract values, and progress over time are all elements that need to be made public. Otherwise, we will have ambitious percentages and claims that will be very difficult to verify. And the other thing is that we shouldn't confuse ownership with capability. So a requirement for Namibian equity participation, as our local content policy no doubt will include, can encourage fronting. The more important objective is to build genuine Namibian productive capacity, skills, technology transfer, management expertise, and competitive suppliers that survive beyond an individual petroleum project. Government needs to be realistic about what can be supplied locally. We need to distinguish between goods and services that we can provide now and those that we could provide after targeted capacity building and highly specialized training and so on in the future. And this will require a proper national supply chain and capability assessment. So hopefully what we're building here is not something just about Namibian oil, but also something that will even persist after the oil has been exploited and finished, which we hope will be a long time in the future, but we can't really be sure. So we need to make sure that petroleum investment leaves Namibians with skills, with businesses and infrastructure that are capable of competing in other sectors and regional markets after oil production goes into decline. I've talked a lot about the government, but of course a lot of responsibility lies with international oil companies as well. They can actually move now, because we know we have a local content policy, but it will still have to be translated into law. That could take some time. But IOCs can move now. They can publish major procurement opportunities. They can disclose award criteria, identify beneficial owners of local partners, report local content performance, and establish supplier development programs. And I'm encouraged that I see several of the IOCs in Namibia already moving in this direction and already active in terms of these kind of activities. So I'm going to conclude because I know time is really short. But basically, at the moment, you know, we've been talking again about an FID that we thought might come by the end of July. Again, it's a complicated issue, so it hasn't yet been announced, but we're hopeful that an FID will still be confirmed this year, and that may well be followed by further FIDs in 2027 and 2028. But that still means we'll have 5 years from those FIDs probably before production really gets underway because of the difficulties in terms of the nature of these discoveries being so far offshore and so deep under the surface of the sea. So there's going to be a number of issues that are going to come up in for those 5 years. We're going to have to manage expectations. And one of those expectations is to say, don't just think about oil and gas, think about other aspects of the economy that can be linked with oil and gas, but also can proceed on their own, particularly in the energy sphere, so that we don't already fall into the resource curse before we've really even started. So we can use those 5 years to capacitate, train, and finance our businesses to make sure they can play the key and proper role they should play in local content. But I think the point I really want to end on is that we can also use those 5 years to get our governance systems right. One of those aspects, I think, has been mentioned already, is to join the Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative. So most of the key companies operating in the Orange Basin already are supporting companies for the EITI. And it just seems to hold out the best hope of us getting key governance reforms through quite quickly. So if we join the EITI, maybe within 2 or 3 years, we could be subscribing to the EITI standard rather than waiting a long time for laws to go through Parliament. It's another issue we can discuss elsewhere, but the Namibians here will know that our Parliament is incredibly slow at passing legislation. The Petroleum Amendment Law that's been mentioned already has been in Parliament for 7 months already, hasn't yet moved beyond second reading. And that's a debate that we can have elsewhere, but we're going to have to deal with those issues as well. But we need to get the governance right so that we can reduce the corruption risks. And if we reduce the corruption risks, then at the same time, we'll be maximizing the benefits for the Namibian people. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hopwood. And at this juncture, I just want to open up, rather give 5 minutes to the audience to just give questions. And in that case, let's just all move to the areas that have the mics. Specifically, the one in the center would be ideal. We just have 5 minutes for questions, or after the 5 minutes is done, then I think we can just allow for us to ask those questions bilaterally during our networking sessions that we'll be having later on. Please, we have one more question. Do we have another contribution? Please just follow the kind lady there as she comes to the front, and then we can just hand over to the panel to answer the questions briefly. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Yeah. I thought you were going to add this pretty young lady, but apparently I'm only kind. Okay, so my name is Tony Hancox. I'm the director at the Legal Assistance Center, an NGO, public interest. I'm probably the least qualified to be here. However, I know that NGOs are thought to be fractious and difficult and so on in the oil industry, and I get that. I just want to ask one question. I think the gentleman, the delegate from Nigeria, you were the only one that mentioned indigenous people and how you need to make it a situation where they will learn, etc., and find something from that in terms of content. I would like to know what is being said about indigenous people. What is being said about consent, informed consent. We are a part of UNDRIP, which is you will know, I'm sure, the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, which speaks to their right to their land. This has been a concern of us. So that's it. That's all I want to put to you. It's a question, and I'd really like a response. Thank you.
Yeah, good morning again. My name is Manuel Peliganga from Angola, and I'm also the Partnership Secretary for the African Local Content Association. And I have a question from my friend Utara Josh regarding the newly approved local content law for Namibia. So my question is the following. We know from experience that for the local content to be really effective and applied, there must be a monitoring board. And Nigeria did it successfully. Very well done. Now, does the new approved law have provisions for this monitoring, let me say, for this monitoring part? Thank you.
That's it. You can go.
Thank you. I think we'll just take these two questions, and then if there are more, we'll take that after this. I'll call to address the question on the indigenous people, how their interest is being addressed in local content. We'll ask Utara to come up and talk us through that in the new law that is coming up. And she might as well just take on the next question about establishment of a monitoring body for local content in Namibia. Thank you.
All right, thank you. On the indigenous land rights question, I think I can't see Ms. Hancock's now. Oh, I think your question was mainly around consent. And I know that a lot of the consent debate has been centered sort of around the Environmental Management Act and Indigenous people's rights contained therein. And I think this would also tie in with Mr. Graham Hopwood, because what we've seen is that, sometimes environmental clearances are given, and part of that process is informed consent. And what we've seen from an accountability point of view is that when civil society has requested for the documents, I know in the mining industry this has been a big debate with particularly foreign investors coming in, and they've been mining in certain areas, and the question is whether or not there's been informed consent there too. So in principle, yes, the law requires it, but from an enforcement point of view, I think that's really where we are slacking as Namibians, and this is, I think, where the transparency in relation thereto would come in, because you want to know, have people given informed consent, but also around informed consent, I think there's a bigger principal question that we need to ask, which is what forms informed consent? Because you cannot consent to something that you don't you haven't applied your mind to, it hasn't been explained to you, there's been no proper consultative process. And this is often what we've seen, where it's just consent on paper, but it's not informed consent in the strict sense of the word. I mean, oil and gas is new to Namibia. I think anyone who professes to be an expert is maybe chuffing their ego, because this is all something that we're learning, and we're learning from counterparts. So definitely something that we need to consider, especially if you're considering it from a socio-economic perspective, and development across all sectors of society within Namibia. So I hope that answered the question. To my brother Manuel. So it is a local content policy, right? Policy being separate from a piece of legislation. And we don't have a body the same way that Nigeria has an independent regulator, for example, that has these oversight. Currently, as it stands, a lot of the local content is contained in some of the petroleum agreements, and there is a need for a regulator that can have that enforcement role and that enforcement mechanism. We've also seen in the amended bill that is being discussed in Parliament at the moment, with the move from the ministry to the UPU, we've seen that, you know, there is now reference to a Director General, a Deputy Director General with different functions. But I think while we're on the concept of the regulator and local content, I think there's a very important question one needs to ask, and I'm not sure if anyone from Petrofund is here, but one of the questions we are faced with in Namibia is we can talk about skills capacitation, we can talk about skills building, but what we also need to keep in mind is barriers of entry into the market itself, and the role that, for example, financial institutions would play. If you want to service people in the industry, you need access to capital. I mean, that's just a reality. Oil and gas is extremely capital intensive, and we need a system that works together. So, and another thing is skills retention, because you can have Petrofund that is doing great, and I mean, we're sending people for training in Nigeria, in Ghana, but how do we retain the skills locally, as opposed to now having an IOC come in, make a better offer, and then we lose that investment that we've made, that direct human capital investment. So yeah, I think there's a lot of reform, and there is a need for a regulator in that sense, the same way Nigeria has. So I hope I've answered your question as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Yao. I think they deserve a bigger round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Please, let's give them the honors. Thank you very much, Mr. Bolaji, and your panel for, of course, opening our minds up to quite a lot that Namibia needs to learn as far as local content is concerned. Let me just quickly invite Mr. Jackson Angolo, Senior Energy Investment Analyst at the Namibia Investment Promotion and Development Board, to just hand over the token of appreciation to our moderator as well as our panelists. Please, a round of applause to Mr. Angolo as we welcome him on stage. Good to see you, man. Cheers. Let's just keep all of them at once. Yeah. While we're still at it, having our panelists receive their tokens of appreciation, I would just like to give thanks to our sponsors. I did get into a bit of trouble earlier on for mispronouncing one of the sponsors' name. I would just like to apologize in that regard. Explore Co. My apologies for mispronouncing that name. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us, for being our gold sponsor. And to our silver sponsors, Total Energies, Capacity Enhancement Partners, that is, of course, Shell, Hanwha Ocean, CT Hydraulics, Gulp, Halliburton, Kenyan, SLB, Woodside Energy, Standard Bank, as well as Bank Windhoek. Thank you so much for being a part of this journey with us. We really and highly appreciate your, of course, commitment to be part of the 4th Namibia Oil and Gas Conference. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are seeing any of our panelists not smiling, you are allowed to shout and call them out. In that regard, I think it's also just fair to then give the next announcement, which will be then us now breaking for lunch. I am well informed that lunch will be served. That is in Namib 1 and 2 Nomad Restaurant. That is on the side of the building where the pool area is. So let's just make sure that we all have our tags on as we move into that direction in a nicely and orderly manner. And we'll be served for lunch there. That is, of course, courtesy of Total Energies. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Let's connect again at just a little after 2 o'clock, let's say 10 past 2, and commence with even more significant discussions, starting with contractors. Thank you so much. Please, let's meet at 10 past 2. Thank you.